our top 5 hurlers in Ireland. So we haven't done this for a while. Let's have a little look at what it was the last time. We had Cian Lynch number 1, Tony Kelly number 2, Hegarty number 3, Barron 4, and Sean Finn 5. It's probably changed a little bit, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. With due respect to Jamie Barron, it's going to be very difficult to have him in the top 5 now. You'd have to say. Tony Kelly's form has gone up. Cian Lynch played what, 1 full match, and there's question marks about how much he's going to feature. He's not going to feature in Munster again, so whether he's still number 1 or not is in question too. I think Gerard Hegarty's form while on the pitch has been brilliant. Discipline, probably question mark a small bit, or just the fact that he even got a red card. Sean Finn was taken for 3 points from play by Tony Kelly when they played them the last time out, but he's been pretty good too. I suppose you have to look at who comes out. Darren Barnes is a good one. He definitely has to come in, I would say. Are there any other lads that you can think of that really deserve to come into that mix?
I'd say Aaron Gillan now might be. Yeah, I think Aaron Gillan.
Are we gonna have Tony Kelly and 4 Limerick lads?
It's looking that way, isn't it?
There's a serious potential for it anyway.
Well, look, I think because of the way the injuries are at the moment, and we don't know how he'll be for the rest of the year, I think we have to put Tony Kelly at number 1.
Yeah, he was good, I'd say, in the first 2 games. The game against Limerick, he took
number 1 and 2.
Yeah. I tell you what, who was it picked their dream 7 aside, one of the Clare players a couple of years ago, and he just had 7 Tony Kellys.
Yeah, hard to debate. Jeez, if you could find 7 of them, you'd be happy enough, wouldn't you?
But
Conor Gilligan earlier was talking about having 2 Brendan Rodgers. We've got 2 Tony Kellys.
Yeah, just like to do what Tony Kelly did against the best team in the country, and like he was on Darren Barnes a couple of different stages. One of those great points he got down the shed sideline, shall we say, was like Burns was up behind him, right up on top of him, and he's still able to score. So I have no issue with Tony Kelly number 1. Does Cian Lynch remain in the top 5 here?
Well, like, there's no doubt that when fit, we had him at number 1 for a reason. So he's without question in the top 5. I see Fergus Butler here saying Lahan on current form. I think we need to see a small bit more talent-wise. He's up there with some of the best hurlers in the country, but I'm not sure if we can have him in the top 5 just yet. I see Shane O'Donnell being mentioned, Rory Hayes. I see Shane O'Donnell being mentioned a couple of times, as I was saying. Diarmuid Burns has been mentioned. Like, how far up? Look, we'll come back to Cian Lynch in a minute. How far up here are we talking with Diarmuid Burns or with Aaron Gillan? I'm going to put Gerard Hegarty in at number 2, by the way. He's just been sensational through the Munster Championship.
Thought he was brilliant against Tipshane, particularly at the end. He scored 4 points against Clare while he was on the pitch, including that lovely kind of faded effort around from 70 yards, and he just strikes the ball ridiculously easy. I'd have no problem having him there. I suppose you have to look at how far down Burns. Yeah, Darren Barnes.
What do you make of this comment, by the way, from Liam Lennon? Do you want to read it out?
Would have argued for Owen Cody if Kilkenny weren't just belting ball over his head. Yeah, when he's been on the ball, he's been brilliant. Like against Galway, he was absolutely outstanding. Is there any Galway player that comes into the mix? Does Conor Whelan come into the conversation?
Well, I think he's always in our conversation in there, but it's hard to kind of nail him down for that top one when in the top 5, because Galway probably aren't getting enough ball into him. He's not been able to do quite the amount of damage that it seems that he definitely can do huge damage, but maybe he's not getting quite enough ball to be getting that regular supply of goals that he's probably capable of.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I'd agree with you there. Another, like from a Wexford point of view, he probably doesn't come into the top 5, but Damien Rex has been outstanding this year. Lee Chin just showed how important he is to the Wexford cause against Kilkenny as well. When he was just like, he was everywhere. Everything that was good about Wexford, Chin was probably involved in it. He probably hasn't played enough this year or to that level, I'd say, to be in the top 5.
Thinking the same, yeah.
Yeah, Dublin players. Probably, Donald Burke is maybe one of the few that you could talk about. Don't think his form was at the level where he's coming into the top 5. Tipperary obviously gone as well. Noel McGrath's form was brilliant against Limerick in particular. He was class. Against Waterford the first day, he was man of the match in a lot of quarters, despite being on the losing team. And he didn't exactly do too much wrong the last day against Cork either. But don't think he's coming into that top 5 conversation. The Clare lads, Peter Duggan's been brilliant. Again, I don't think he come into the top 5. O'Donnell probably wouldn't have him in the top 5.
John Conlon.
They're probably hovering. There's probably a lot of players hovering. Rory Hayes is right on the borderline, I'd say. Right on the borderline. Probably the closest of the 3 or 4 Clare lads that we've mentioned there outside of Kelly to make it, I'd say.
Kyle Hayes?
Hasn't showed it. Well, it's a funny one.
Well, you see, again, it's the same as the hurling power rankings. There's no absolute formula here. You kind of have to go on what they've done before, what you think they can do. There's a lot of different things at play here. The team they're in, will that allow them to show the full of themselves in the way that Conor Whelan and Owen Cody maybe aren't showing the entire full of themselves? Maybe Jake Morris in a different team would go to town. So there's a lot at play here. It's very difficult to nail it down. It's very subjective.
I don't think Hayes is in the top 5 as a forward. I'd put it to you that way. I think he offers a lot more as a wing back. That's like his versatility would probably cost him, I'd say, in this 5. But I just don't think he's a natural. I don't think he's a natural full forward. That's not to say he can't do a load of damage. I just don't think he's natural. Are we putting should we be? Keane Lynch has to stay in the top 5. It's just a matter of where he's going to be, I would say.
It's just where. Can you hear me there, Michael?
Yeah, I can hear you again. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, just dropped my end for a second there. You were saying Keane Lynch is still top 5?
Well, I know he hasn't played that much in recent weeks, but he's a 2-time hurler of the year. Was very good against Cork. Like, are we taking him out just because he's injured at the moment? He will feature this year, I'd imagine, but it just kind of, I don't know. Does he come down to the bottom end of the top 5 if he's in it, or are we still saying, listen, Keane Lynch when he's 100% fit is class, he should still be number 3 or thereabouts?
Well, I suppose we dropped Tony Kelly away from number 1 a while back because of stuff like ankle injury and things like that. You could argue that he never dropped from being the number 1 hurler in the country, except for the way things conspired with his team maybe not overall being as good as Limerick's, him not having the same amount of opportunities. I mean, if you put them side by side on the same team, who would be better, Tony Kelly or Keane Lynch? It'd be very, very hard to call, wouldn't it?
That's tough. That's a tough question. Yeah, that's a tough question. Yeah. And the beauty of that as well is that they are 2 different types of players. Kelly, I would say Kelly on that Clare team, not that he knows he has to score, but there's more of that scoring burden on him. Whereas Lynch, there's less of a scoring burden on him. He can just be a creator and a killer creatively, rather than Kelly, I think, feels he has to take on that mantle a lot of the time. I'd probably still have Keane Lynch in at 3, Shane, if I'm honest with you. I don't think we should totally forget about him.
No. I'd agree. I'd put him at 3, but I think a view that he can go back to number 1 when he's fit and he gets a couple of games under his belt. So I'm sure nobody from Limerick will take a fit of the vapors at that. Would you put... I'm starting to think that, before I said, will Aaron Gallan take that next step to become one of the elite forwards in Ireland? I think he's kind of getting to that stage now where, like a few of the other Limerick hurlers, you almost feel like you need to have a special plan for him. Now, ultimately, you can't plan especially for all of these guys. But in terms of like inside forward, the threat he carries, I just think he has to be in the top 5 now at this stage. And arguably, he's the best inside forward. And maybe Desi Hutchinson should be talking about here. Like Waterford were battered against Clare in the final round, and he scored 1-6 from play. So, you can't ignore what he's doing. He scored a goal against Tip as well. Won that Club All-Ireland. Was huge for Ballygunner.
5 points against Limerick as well, yeah. I tell you something there. It's a fair point you make. He played particularly well in a team that was not functioning at all.
This is the thing. Dublin's Fair City says Tony Kelly, Gerard Hegarty, Tim O'Mahony, Conor Whelan, Kyle Hayes. And then I think for you, he goes at top 5 with Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, Hacksaw, Jim Duggan. How's that, Bernie, lad?
I like that. If I was adding probably 2 more, we're looking at 90s vintage there. I'd probably throw in the Texas Tornado and maybe, who are we looking at? Psycho Sid maybe as well. Good man, Dublin's Fair City. It's good to see that you're getting in on it this morning, even though you have a sick head.
I'd be a big fan of the tag teams back from the 90s, like the natural disasters, Earthquake and Typhoon. The 2 of them about 30 stone each. We had the Rockets, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty.
The Rockers,
were
yeah, the Rockers. And
the
then
Rockers.
Shawn Michaels famously super kicked Marty Jannetty through the barbershop window. That's how they split up. That's how you do it.
Who could forget? Grow Logo Gracon says, if Rory Hayes does a good job in Aaron Gillane on Sunday, will that put him in the top 5? Well, will he be marking him? Will Conor Cleary, because he's very strong in the air, will he be put on him? But then Rory Hayes is probably better across the turf, where Gillane is also very good. And that's the dual threat that Gillane poses. He's a threat both in the air and on the ground because of that beautiful sidestep he has. Flash, I'm going to make it easier for myself. I do a top 10 instead.
Flash, come on.
It's a bit windy, Flash. That's windy. Tony Kelly, Aaron Gillane, Keane Lynch, Jimmy Burns, Grode Hegarty, Sean Finn, Shane O'Donnell, Barry Nash. He's also added in Peter Duggan and Rory Hayes. Double Fair City enjoys the Texas Tornado. Flash, John Cena, The Rock, Stone Cold, Bret Hart. They're the goats for me. So we still haven't fully settled on this top 5. As ever, when we're doing any of these lists, we get sidetracked and we start talking about other things like wrestling. So Keane Lynch...
I'm gonna like. I think Dermot Burns and Aaron Gillane should complete the top 5. And I think the worrying thing from the Chase and Pack's point of view is obviously Lynch isn't playing at the moment, but the worrying thing from the Chase and Pack's point of view is how many Limerick players are in form. Gerard Hegarty's playing as good as he did in 2020. Aaron Gillane, to me, is playing the best hurling of his career. Dermot Burns is playing the best hurling of his career. Sean Finn is still playing well, but maybe just not maybe as well as he was at different stages last year. Barry Nash, 100% Liam, totally agree with you. Barry Nash is like the ultimate cornerback at the moment. And it's funny because I asked Sean Finn about that and he said, well, Barry Nash kind of plays that floater kind of cornerback, and he plays it so well. He's so comfortable on the ball, and he brings so much energy to it and can put a score over. And that's worrying from the Chase and Pack's point of view, just how many lads are playing well. You'd have to say the two Patrick Swell lads, Burns and Gillane, are playing the best hurling that they've ever played. And Hegarty is back at 2020 levels. So that's that is a worrying thing for the Chase and Pack, without a doubt.
So actually, now that you say it, 3 of the top 5, number 3, 4, and 5 here are all from Patrick Swell.
Yeah, sure. Listen, and that's something that we must put to Kieran on Thursday. Like, it's phenomenal, and I'd love to know at what stages. They're all pretty much a similar age as well. I don't know that they dominate underage hurling coming up, whether the well did or not. But when you have 3 players like that on any team, it's outstanding. They're all. Limerick probably do still need Keane Lynch back, but they have a lot of players that are just playing out of their skin at the moment. And there's a couple of lads unlucky. Rory Hayes is unlucky. Sean Finn is probably a bit unlucky as well. Rory Hayes probably in a better form, you would say, maybe. O'Donnell potentially unlucky as well. But that says a lot. That said, we don't maybe talk too much about the Limerick squad, but their 15 is outstanding on a given day. It's absolutely outstanding. And listen, there's a fair chance that Tom Morrissey would probably be in that top 5 by the end of the year, because that's just the way he operates, and he just gets better as the championship goes on as well.
Yeah, I had him as my hurler of the year in 2020. Yeah, he does do that. He kind of picks up as the season goes on. Killian Doyle, second highest scorer in the championship, says SSRI. Yeah, very fair comment there. Flash, Mike Casey deserves an honourable mention. Came back in after nearly 3 years out of the championship game and hasn't missed a single beat. Dublin's Fair City. I forgot Burns and Gillane. That list is pretty much spot on, to be fair. Yeah, I mean, we're absolutely open to other suggestions. You might feel that Leinster has been underserviced here. It's basically 2 counties. There's probably a pretty small mileage, I suppose, between all those players that we've named in the top 5 there. You could probably drive an hour or less between all of their houses. Diarmuid O'Keefe has obviously been playing well for Wexford. You mentioned Lee Chin. Owen Cody, I suppose, has been good for Kilkenny. Conor Whelan, you mentioned. I mean, there's not that many players outside of that other than Desi Hutchinson. I think he's probably the one real player that you could say, especially because he's playing well in a team that's not going well at all. Yeah, he's probably the one who's most unlucky. And I think if Austin Gleeson, if the red card hadn't happened, and maybe the final game against Clare, if they weren't beaten so heavily, he'd probably be in the conversation, because despite the red cards, he was actually playing brilliantly.
Yeah, no, he was playing great stuff, in fairness. When he was on the pitch, he was outstanding, you'd have to say. And in fairness to Desi, he's probably a bit unlucky there. Just probably the fact that his championship is over now as well. It's funny when you say that about those guys. Like, I think Tony Kelly's 28. The youngest is probably, they're all between, say, 25 and 28. And that's kind of, maybe that's a sign of modern hurling as well, of where lads start. I do think lads are starting to hit their peak a little bit earlier. I would have said nearly it was even early 30s before. If you looked at the hurler of the years, probably TJ, Shamie Callanan, and a few more, and even Hoggy a couple of years ago, they were hitting their peak or their very, very best at 31 or 32. Then you probably go to the other side of it, whereas all these guys that are at their peak in mid to late 20s, and that's probably a frightening. Very well said by Liam there. Joseph Cooney's been unbelievable. Tom Allen's been very good, but Cooney has been absolutely lighting it up at both ends of the field for Galway, and I think that's exciting from a Galway point of view, that while they maybe don't have anybody to go into the top 5 at the moment, they have a lot of guys hovering. Whelan is hovering, Pádraig Mannion is hovering, Tom Onnetton is hovering, Joseph Cooney is hovering. You need a lot of guys, and that's why I say what's promising from a Clare point of view, that they have Conlon, Hayes, O'Donnell, Duggan. They have a lot of guys that are playing well, that are in the conversation. Limerick have a lot of lads that are in the 5, but a lot of other teams have a lot of guys that are in that conversation. You see how it moves as the season goes. So you need 7 or 8 lads in really, really good form, and all the counties that we're saying have a real realistic chance of winning the All-Ireland all have that at the moment.
For more exclusive content, go to patreon.com/OurGame.